The head of the Italian G7 presidency, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, delivered closing remarks to the press today, wrapping up the 3 day the G7 Leaders Summit that began on Wednesday. It has been a really packed activity event for all the leaders from the seven industrial nation, the seven biggest economic in the world. The Prime Minister, in a remark, he opened her remarks today by thanking Pope Francis for his attendance, for gracing the summit with his attendance, and his keynote speech on artificial intelligence. She also thanked President Biden of the United States also for his support, as well as the commitment that were made by American private sector to the PGI project, the infrastructure and investment project. She talked about some of the deliverables, some of the pledges that um, the leaders made during the 3 day, the actual 2 days that they met together, including addressing issue of migration that affects Europe as well as the rest of the world, treating those migration at the roots of the cause in across Africa. She talked about the deliverable on um, intelligence, as I mentioned, that the Pope spoke about the risk that artificial intelligence pose, not to use it as a weapon. The Prime Minister talked about the Italian Mattei plan, how to change, pivoting the narrative of addressing some of the root causes of migration in Africa and changing the narrative to one of partnership with African nations. Part of the invited guests to the summit was the president of the African Development Bank that the Italian presidency prime minister is partnering with to work together to provide more economic opportunities for youths that often take this risky journey on the Mediterranean. She also talked about China, the commitment that the leaders make together to address the risk that China poses to fair trade and as well as economic development, not just in Europe as well as in America. She also talked about the global minimum tax that have been on the table. There is a commitment. Is now up to, she said, is now up to each nation to take a look at the commitment that were made and ratify it, so they can have a consensus on that. Yeah, had a wrap up from that press conference and some of the event that took place yesterday. In their communique this year, the G7 leaders reaffirmed their commitment to meet global challenges and reiterated their shared belief to democratic principles and free societies. Human rights, social progress, respect for multilateralism and rules of law, and to strengthen international rules and norms to benefit all. Among the other things that the leaders agree is to support Ukraine in its fight for freedom and its reconstruction. They also agreed to support the comprehensive deal that President Biden presented last month regarding bringing an end to the ongoing war in Gaza, the three-phase deal that will lead to a ceasefire in Gaza. For our audience in Africa, the G7 leaders agreed to engage with African countries in a spirit of equitable and strategic partnership by investing respectively in sustainable infrastructure, and during their meeting this year, they launched the Energy for Growth in Africa initiative together with several parties on several African nations, an activity to enable countries to invest in their future and achieve the Sustainable Development Goal. They agreed to make multilateral development bank more effective and are asking for actions to address debt burden that a lot of African countries as well as other developing countries currently carry. The leaders also agreed to reinforce global food security and enhance climate resilience, including through the Apulia Food System Initiative that was just launched. On gender equality, they agreed to unlock $20 billion in the next 3 years in investment to boost human empowerment. They also agreed to work on biodiversity loss and to end plastic pollution. Lastly, they agreed to work with the African Union on the AU 2063 agenda, as well as to end China unfair global trade practices. They also agreed to work on the situation in Haiti, in Sahel, in Sudan, and Libya. They also agreed to tackle the challenges of migration and recommit to implementing the global tax system, the 15% global tax system, and agreed that they will work with the OECD to ensure that by the end of this month, by the end of June, that all nations will have the signature signed and rectify the agreement so it could be implemented. We had the opportunity to talk to the head of the one person in charge, one of the senior advisor of the Prime Minister in charge of the Italian Mattei plan for Africa. Here's what he has to say. So I want to follow up with you regarding something that the Prime Minister talked about during the press conference,
Yes.
which is the Italy Mattei plan, and you are in charge of that. Could you expand a little bit for our audience as well as Italian, how this will benefit the average Italian, the average American, the average member of the G7, and people that might be resistant to immigration, that think immigration might be taking away job or opportunity for them. So if you could expand on how this will not only benefit Italians, it will benefit Africans, it will benefit other nations part of the
I understand. So I would take examples first and foremost. How does it benefit both sides of the Mediterranean? So, for example, energy. After the Russian aggression in Ukraine, the energy flows that used to come from northeast were suddenly, we went down from 40% to less than 10% where we stand right now. Where are we going to get the new energy? Most of it right now is energy coming from Algeria, from the southern shore of the Mediterranean. It's natural gas. But what we're trying to do is develop sustainable energy, clean energy from North African regions, but not only from sub-Saharan African regions as well, in order to make it win-win for both. We can gain more energy, but at the same time, the African nations will gain more energy and clean energy, and it will be a win-win developing for both sides. So this is an example of how, when Prime Minister Meloni says Africa is an opportunity, the African continent is an opportunity, it's not just a challenge, an issue. This is exactly what she means. So this is a concrete example. On your second question, so how does it connect the G7 and the and so what she has tried to portray in the many issues that she was tackling is the G7 for the first time was open to many different nations in not only Africa, North Africa, Middle East, because in order to not have the G7 sort of as a fortress that is closed in itself, but it's actually trying to work together, you need to have an outreach which is larger than usual if you want to talk about a continent as large as Africa. So that's what she tried to do, and that was the message she was trying to convey. And she dedicated a whole side event session, the PGII and the Global Gateway of the EU, with the private sector in order to see where we could make a difference, what concrete results we could bring. One of them was the Lobito corridor that is apparently should connect Angola to the DRC and to Zambia. There was an announcement of more than $320 million from Italy in this G7 session. So these are concrete results. We are putting the vision of the Mattei plan in synchronization with the G7 PGII and with the EU Global Gateway. So this is just a taste that I hope explains, in these works what was done here at the G7.
And you believe that this will address some of the migration issue that we're not only seeing in Italy, in European nations, as well as other parts of the world?
I mean, it's obviously long-term issues, they're complex issues, but if the message is we're just here to stop illegal migration, and that is the end of our message, this message will not be sustainable and will not resonate. Of course, we're here to fight smugglers, to fight illegal migration, but at the same time, as the Prime Minister said, we have enlarged the number, the quota of legal migrants that should come to Italy, and at the same time, as I said before, working in partnership with African countries to develop together. So this is the medium, long-term solution, and that is very important to bring ahead together with the rest.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.